Welcome, everybody, to the Week 1 Power Ranking Show. My name is Hunter, and today we're going to go through the 32 teams, how they did in Week 1, and we're going to rank them from 1 to 32. If you have any suggestions or videos other than these Power Rankings that will come out every week on Wednesday, then let me know in the comments, and let's get right into it. At number 32, we got the Carolina Panthers, and this week they just looked really bad to start off the year. They already lost their best player, Derrick Brown, to a season-ending injury, on top of losing 47-10 to the New Orleans Saints. Bryce Young did not look good this week. He threw multiple picks, and the only touchdown was late in the game when it didn't matter. They went down at half 30-3, lost 47-10 in the end. Run game non-existent. Defense needs to be better. Their next week is against the Chargers, and maybe they'll get some type of momentum going into the late parts of the season, but at this point, it already looks over. At number 31, we got the New York Giants, and Daniel Jones did not look like the guy he was 2 years ago. Throwing multiple picks, he threw a pick six at one point, and it's messing up an offense that could look good. Malik Neighbors seemed pretty good in his debut, and Devin Singletary was kind of effective in the run game. The defense needs to pick up what the offense can't do if this Giants team wants to go anywhere this season, and they'll begin some type of reboot of their season against the Commanders next week. But right now, they're at 31. At number 30, we got the Denver Broncos, and Bo Nix in his debut had some flashes, but ultimately did not play well. He threw multiple picks, gave points away, had a red zone pick early in the game that turned into a Seattle success drive. And in addition, the offense needs to help the defense out. Just in general, the defense got two safeties in this game against the Seahawks. That it was a 6-point game. They had the chance to win, but Bo Nix needs to be better. The defense needs some help from the offense, and they could do that next week against the Steelers. But right now, they are at 30. First surprise of the power rankings, I have the Cleveland Browns at 29. And this was a playoff team last season, but they had Joe Flacco, and now with Deshaun Watson back, this team had a terrible game against the Cowboys. Their defense looks okay, but it needs to be better like it was last year. And Deshaun Watson is ultimately holding back an offense that could do good things once Nick Chubb comes back. And I don't think they're going to do what they did last season if Deshaun Watson keeps playing like this. They might have to turn to potentially Jameis Winston or Dorian Thompson-Robinson because Deshaun Watson is not looking good. The Vegas Raiders sit at 28, and their defense looked good as always. They got good pieces like Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins, and more. But Minshew played a solid game, but the offense could not score after an early drive, which Madison scored on. And that ultimately cost them the game, a game that they could have won against the LA Chargers. But this Raiders team does have potential to be a good team this season. As Antonio Pierce is the right coach for this team, they just need better offensive output, and they could rise with these power rankings. Number 27, we got the Tennessee Titans. And the Titans, they did drop this game this week, but the first half, they played extremely well. But they could not close it out in the second half. They gave away bad turnovers, one block punt for a touchdown, and a pick six. They ended up losing this game by a touchdown. So those are two plays that turned the entire game. Will Levis needs to be better in the second half. The offense in general needs to be better in the second half, but defense held Caleb Williams to 93 yards, and they look like they could be a bright spot for this Titans team that I was high on going into the season, but right now they sit at 27. At number 26, you got the Washington Commanders, and the Commanders, we saw the debut of Jaden Daniels, and he looked pretty good, dynamic as a runner, scoring 2 rushing touchdowns, but the defense could not stop Baker Mayfield at all. They lost this game 37-20, and this is a defense that they heavily invested in the offseason, but results haven't come in the first game. They got time. They're playing one of the worst offenses in the league in the Giants, and this is a chance for that defense to take that next step and kind of support that offense that could still get better. But right now, I got the Commanders at 26. At number 25, I got the Cincinnati Bengals, and this was a game that I paid a lot of attention to. I was watching it, and this offense just could not get off the ground. This is an offense that was missing T. Higgins, but still had pieces in Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and they only had one drive. They got stopped at the goal line once, but they needed to do more in a game where their defense did make stops, but they had to stop Stevenson. They lost this game 16-10, and the Stevenson ended up being the guy that carried the Patriots to the victory, and the Bengals needed to stop that. So they're going to sit at 25 after a poor start. We have our first team with a victory, which was the Patriots, who beat the Bengals, who are at 25. Stevenson, as I said when I was talking about the Bengals, he single-handedly really won this game, having over 100 yards. But Brissett needed to be better. The pass game was just not there. And if the Patriots want to win games, they're going to have to rely on Stevenson. And that's why they're so low, sitting at 24, even though they did win. At 23, I have a team that I was a little surprised by in the Arizona Cardinals. They played a really good game against the Bills, who are going to be much higher on this list. They lost by 6. And Murray looked pretty good, but he needs to get it to Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, guys that did not get the ball in this game. The defense does need a bit of work, as they did lose this like a shootout of a game that they definitely could have controlled that Bills offense a little bit more. But the Cardinals ultimately a good job. This is way higher than I thought they would be. They're sitting at 23. At 22, we have a team that I thought was going to be pretty good, but their offense ended up being not so great, and I'm talking about the Atlanta Falcons. Kirk Cousins threw a couple picks in this one, but he does have those weapons where he could get it to them, but he's just going to have to do it a bit more if he's going to want to win games. And they only scored 10 points, and they lost the game. So, but their defense did look really good, limited the Steelers to not even scoring a touchdown. So I think the Falcons are trending in the right direction, but right now they sit at 22. At 21, we have the Chargers that did beat the Raiders. They won by 12, 22-10. J.K. Dobbins, breakout player for them this week, putting up easily over 100 yards. Their pass rush got to the quarterback a lot. That was a big part in them limiting the Raiders' offense to scoring 10 points. And Herbert just needs more out of his receivers. I know he doesn't have the receivers he had last year, but he does need to get a bit more help if they want to score more. If they want to score a bit more. But good job in week 1. Chargers sit at 21. At 20, we have the Chicago Bears, who escaped with a win over the Titans. Their defense is going to be one of the best units in all of football this year, and it showed. They won a game where their offense didn't do as what they wanted to do. Williams only putting up 93 yards, but they have the weapons where this offense is going to get better. He is a rookie in his first game, but the Bears looking pretty good, but concerns about their offense and Williams' play kind of has them this low at 20. At 19, we got the Seattle Seahawks, and they were another team that did escape with a win. Their offense gave the chance for the Broncos to win this game, and it just did not happen for them. This defense of the Seahawks is going to look really good under Mike McDonald. Kenneth Walker looked really good. I mean, he is questionable for week 2 right now with an injury, but ultimately he did end up carrying this offense to the win. And the Seahawks are going to play a Patriots team this week that are kind of in the same position, that they do have question marks, but they're both 1-0. And right now they're sitting at 19. At 18, we got the Jaguars, and they were up 17-0 in their game, but lost 20-17. The wheels did fall off of this offense. Lawrence did look really good, though, making some good throws. He had a nice touchdown throw to Brian Thomas, who I think is going to be really good for them. Their defense, they got to be better in the second half. Their offense does have to be better in the second half as well. And they did show flashes of being that team they were 2 years ago, so that's why they're sitting at 18. At number 17, we got the New York Jets, and they lost by 2 touchdowns this week, but their offense showed flashes that we did not see with Zach Wilson. Aaron Rodgers looks like he's the right quarterback for this offense. Garrett Wilson looked pretty good. Allen Lazard looked better than he did last year, and Breece Hall looked pretty solid, but their defense needs to pick it up. Did not look like the team that we've seen the last 2 years where the defense carried, but it looks more of an offensive-centric team. And I think this team is going to be pretty good this year. They showed it in the first game, and they have a long season ahead of them. So for that reason, I have them at 17. Into the top half of the league, we got the Colts at 16. And this might seem a little high, but they played a team that I have in the top 5 of this list, and the Texans. Anthony Richardson looked like a potential MVP candidate. He was releasing the ball really well, had a bunch of deep plays. His receivers need to be on the receiving end of that plays. Saw a couple misses that should have been long plays, but this offense looks like it's going to be explosive, and the defense just needs to make those stops because they got dominated by a Texans offense, but yet only lost the game by 2. So the Colts sit at 16. At 15, we got the Minnesota Vikings, and the Vikings, they played a Giants team that is pretty much at the bottom of this list, but their defense looked really good. And the offense, it's shaky. Sam Darnold does his job, but this offense needs to be a bit more efficient if they want to win games against the top 15, 10 teams of this league and potentially get into the playoffs this year. But week 1, great start, Vikings at 15. At number 14, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Baker Mayfield had one of the best weeks for a quarterback this week, throwing 4 touchdowns, over, I think, around 300 yards. And Baker is going to be a big part of this team's success, but their receivers, they have Evans, Godwin, they have a couple other guys that can really get it done for them. And their defense restricted a quarterback that I thought was having a good game. So Bucs up at 14, going to try to get back to where they were last year. At number 13, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they got it done this week. That's all you could say about their victory. They won 18-10, did not score a touchdown, and finishing off drives is something that this team will need to work on if they want to win those shootout games where the defense isn't going to get as many stops as they did against the Falcons. Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, whoever the guy is, this offense just needs to be a more efficient on finishing those drives. Defense, beautiful performance. TJ Watt, still the best defensive player in the league. And he really made an impact on this game, kind of single-handedly winning this game for the Steelers. So he's basically got his team at 13. At number 12, we got the LA Rams. And the Rams, they did lose against the Lions. It went to overtime, but the Cooper Kupp of a couple of years ago, he seems to be back. He had a great performance. He's dealt with injuries the last 2 years, but that seems to be out the window now. The defense needs to figure things out, but they are looking good. And that's a big part of how they do this season is when will this defense become that Rams unit that brought them to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. I know that they're missing Aaron Donald now, but they're going to have to adapt without him. And Stafford seems like he's back to prime form. Also, he dealt with some injuries the last couple of years, but he threw for over 300 yards and looked really good against the Lions. So they're at 12. The last team outside the top 10, you have the Saints at 11. And they did win by a huge margin, winning by 37 over the Panthers. The offense just seemed amazing. Derek Carr seemed like he was in his bag. Kamara, Williams, Shaheed, everybody was getting involved. It was an offensive party in New Orleans, you could say. The defense was looking amazing. They were shut down. But these next 2 weeks are going to be really important for the Saints' true identity. They play the Cowboys this week, and they play the Eagles in week 3. If they come out of those 2 games with wins, the Saints are going to be considered a prime contender. But they showed that they can be a force to be reckoned with in this league, and that's why they're at 11. At number 10, I got the Green Bay Packers, and they did have the Love injury, which it seems like he's 50-50 for this weekend now. It seems like he could potentially get in, but his team looked really good against the Eagles. Defense needed to be a bit better outside their takeaways, and the offense, Jaden Reed looks like an absolute stud, and Josh Jacobs had a great game in his debut. But the Packers, they could have won that game, and now they're 0-1, and they'll look to get in the win column against the Colts, but they're in the top 10 still. At number 9, you got the Dallas Cowboys, who won by 16 over the Browns. The offense did not have to be as perfect as they needed to be in other games, but Prescott still got the job done. Defense produced many turnovers, and that's kind of why they won this game. It might have been Deshaun Watson having a bad performance, but it was also the Cowboys' defense playing extremely well to limit the Browns from doing pretty much anything offensively. And Kevontae Turpin, I think he's a top 3 returner in the league, potentially top 1. He got a punt return in this one. But Cowboys looking good, but that's how they kind of always look this time of year. And that's why they're at 9. At number 8, we got the Miami Dolphins. And what a comeback win from them. You had Tyreek Hill literally come back from being arrested pregame. And that arrest celly was pretty cool. But back to how they played. Their defense was shut down in the second half, and their pass attack is extremely effective. Tua leads the league in passing yards, and they have 2 over 100-yard receivers in Waddle and Hill. So this offense seems like it's going to be a massive threat again, and that's why they're in the top 10, sitting here at 8. We have our final team that took an L on the list at 7, and that's the Baltimore Ravens. And they lost 27-20 in a really good game that should have went to overtime if Isaiah Likely's toe was not out, but Likely had the game of his life, over 100 yards. Looks like the guy if Mark Andrews is still kind of injured. Lamar, he's back to his MVP form, picking right up where he left off. And the defense is still as good. They picked off Mahomes. Roquan Smith had that pick. And this Ravens team looked like they can do what they did last year if they just continue to do what they did in week 1. At number 6, we got the Buffalo Bills. And the Bills, Josh Allen, I thought he was the best quarterback this week. He played out of his mind against the Cardinals, scoring 2 rushing touchdowns. They spread out the offense. I think almost 10 different receivers caught balls for the Bills this week. And it works. They got Shakir, they got Coleman, they got Matt Collins. They have a lot of guys that can do stuff for the Bills. The defense is a question mark, but that's going to be sorted out over time because this is a majorly new defense. They lost a lot of guys in free agency, but this defense was able to get the job done, and the Bills sit at 6. At number 5, we got the Detroit Lions. They won a Sunday night thriller against the Rams. David Montgomery with a huge game. In overtime, he really turned it up when it mattered most for the Lions to get the win this week. Offense toughed it out to win. That's something that it's part of that Dan Campbell way of play. And it's continued into this season. The Lions look like they're going to be a great team again. Defense doesn't seem like they are what they were last year, but I believe that they'll get it done as time goes on, and the Lions are looking like an NFC competitor once again. At 4, we got the Philadelphia Eagles, and in that Brazil game, they looked amazing. Although the field was not that great, and Hurts did have a couple turnovers, they got it done. And Barkley and A.J. Brown, the 2 key pieces of their offense. Barkley new to the team. A.J. Brown in his 3rd year with the team, they both look great. Barkley having 3 touchdowns, A.J. Brown having over 100 yards. Defense turned it around. They did not have a good first half, but in the second half, they kind of shut down Jordan Love in that offense, and they got the win. And that's what you need to see out of the Eagles if they want to get back to where they were and end that slump they had at the end of the last season. So, Eagles looking like a good team. At number 3, you got the San Francisco 49ers, and Jordan Mason took over for McCaffrey perfectly in this game. He had over 100 yards. Purdy made the throws when it counts, had a lot of third down conversions. The defense was an absolute wall. Jets couldn't really move outside like 2 or 3 drives. But the offense like I said with the Steelers, 6 field goals out of the Niners here too, and they need to finish drives if they want to get to the next level. So that's why the Niners are not as high as I had them going into the season, and they sit at 3. People might say this is a bit high, but I have the Houston Texans at 2. I think they're one of the best teams in the league. As I said before, Richardson looked like a MVP quarterback in that game, and they were able to get the win. Joe Mixon leads the league in rushing yards. Nico Collins had over 100 yards. Diggs had multiple touchdowns. This offense looks like it is the biggest threat to the Chiefs in the AFC and potentially the entire NFL. And the defense looked, as I said just now, really good. So I'm interested to see how this Texans team does across the entire season. But right now I have them at number 2, and they're the best team outside of the Chiefs. And that all leads to at number 1, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. And the back-to-back Super Bowl champions picked up right where they left off, won a game against a really good Ravens team. Worthy, how did the Bills let them fall to the Chiefs? They basically want the Chiefs to succeed, giving them probably their number 1 weapon outside of Kelsey. Pacheco was making huge runs. Defense stopping a really good Ravens offense for pretty much the entire night. And Mahomes is still that guy. So the Chiefs, best team in the NFL. And that leads to the end of the video. If you liked it, leave a like, comment down below if you disagree with anything, and I will see you guys next week for Week 2's Power Rankings next Wednesday.